welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining. I know that we've been gone for a week and it's been a little spotty this month, and I sincerely apologize. I am happy to say that we should not be missing any more episodes of SKEPGEN for the rest of 2025. But for today, hello, welcome. I am broadcasting live from war-torn Portland, Oregon. My name is Eric Murphy. This is Skeptic Generation. It is September 28th, 2025, and we need to talk. So I'm flying solo this week, going old school, and I'm kind of excited to. That said, I am going to need callers. There's only so much I can monologue, and this is a conversation show, so I would love to have the conversation. Let me throw out the topic and then go from there. The topic is turning the other cheek. I felt like that could be an important one this week, especially for me. I mean, personally. Well, I guess I should probably give the concept of it for people who are not raised Christian or come from under a rock. The idea is when Jesus was asked what you should do when you are wronged by another person, he said that if someone strikes you as a Christian, you should turn the other cheek and allow them to strike your other side sooner than you would raise your hand to strike them back. The idea is that two wrongs don't make a right, and so if someone hurts you, it's better that you let them hurt you again than for you to hurt them in return. And I think that we've all had some experiences about that. So I'm going to put the phone number out there, and what I'd really like is for people to talk about where they've experienced it. I do not want to hear third-party stuff on this one. I don't want somebody to call in saying, I know a person who knows a person. But if you have personally been told to turn the other cheek, if that is something that you've experienced in your life, I really want to hear it. So let me put the phone number out there, and then I will move forward. The phone number is 412-SKEPGEN. That's 412-753-7436. Or you can go to tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. That's tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. Our call screener is waiting to talk to you, and I would love to hear from you. All right. So I kind of want to give a little bit no, the better thing is to give a little bit of information. I know people might wonder why I'm not talking about all the stuff going on politically. And a part of that is I made my partner a promise that I was not going to put us on a list. And I, out of an abundance of caution, I'm being careful about what I bring up and how I can go about these conversations. I think for people who have not been watching the news, I know that 90% of the volunteers for this show over the last week has sent me a message, usually connected to a link saying that Donald Trump is planning on sending the military into Portland, Oregon, where I live. And that's scary. It's scary because I don't think that the people who are being sent here, maybe not as much the military, but the organizations like ICE, I don't think that they're answerable to anyone but the president. I think that there's a subversion of the democratic process, and I think that I'm probably preaching to the choir on that one. But I think in an ideal democratic society, you shouldn't be afraid of your own military. But if you think that, so I don't know what's coming. And I do want to say, while I am planning on continuing to do the show for as long as I'm able, if people start getting disappeared, I'm going to seriously consider what the format of this show is. The scary thing is you never know who's going to call in. You don't know what topic is coming up. And right now it appears that there are topics that you cannot talk about. So here we are. For international viewers, it's probably sounding really dystopian, and that's because it is. So we're going to see where we go from there. But that leaves me thinking, if I am wronged, right? If something is taken from me, do I turn the other cheek? How useful is that in a secular context as well? I don't need to be a religious person to hear people say, hey, it is the healthiest thing to forgive. And if somebody does something really bad, then you can never really let go until you forgive them. Is that true? Is that useful? Has that been useful for you? That's really kind of where I want to take the conversation. So let's start by talking to Connor, a not atheist. Connor, live calling from Texas. You're on the show. Oh, it's taking Connor a minute on Call in Studio. Connor, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I can hear you.
Hey, there we go. It's just my web app is not updating. Thank you for calling in. What did you want to talk about? Oh, Connor, are you there?
Yeah, something on y'all's text side because it immediately went to the "you're being put in the holding queue"
You, you,
message.
you know what? It's absolutely on my side. My app wasn't updating, so I apologize for that. Let me get your lower third updated, and in the meantime, talk to me. What's going on?
Actually, there was some historical context I learned recently about the whole "turn the other cheek" saying,
Hmm.
and that it's and when looking at the teachings of Jesus from the cultural and social context from the time being, it actually comes off as a very passive aggressive. So this specific one, "turn the other cheek," is in reference to how you would get hit. So like one thing, like if you would get backhanded in the face, it was actually a sign of saying that someone was inferior to you in every way. So turn the other cheek after they hit you. They have their hand in the position where they're forced to hit you with the palm of their hand, which was a sign of showing that you were an equal to them.
So you're saying that if someone hits you, you should put them in
It
a
was
position.
more of a passive aggressive fu to someone saying both with their physical assault, saying that you are inferior to them by trying to force them into a position of declaring you their equal, which was
Hmm.
kind of a thing in the social hierarchy of the Roman society at the time.
Okay. Interesting.
I just thought it was an interesting thing to add to the conversation.
Yeah. Well, so I have the verse here, and what's interesting is well, for people who did not grow up with the Bible or with biblical study, what we're practicing right now is something called hermeneutics. Hermeneutics is when you apply more information as you learn to interpret the text and glean more and more information. I kind of want to read the verse here and see how that applies. Ready?
Okay.
So it's let me see, what do we got here? Here, Matthew 5:38. You have heard that it was said, eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also. And if someone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you.
So there was another one since you brought up the go the extra mile thing. That also is another thing that fits into the whole passive aggressive context because going the extra mile is in direct reference to how a Roman soldier could force a civilian to carry their equipment for 1 mile, no matter what. But if they went beyond that mile, the soldier would actually be in trouble with his commanding officers for the person going more than a mile. So it would be another passive aggressive fu for forcing the person to do it in the first place.
So, that it's interesting. Connor, did you ever read much Nietzsche?
No.
No.
But I do know that his most famous quote is often misunderstood by the population at large.
For sure. I'm not going into that one. But where I'm going with it is he talked about master and slave mentalities, and
Yeah.
when you're talking about like ethics of the poor versus ethics of the wealthy. That they're completely different, because if you cannot have power, what do, right? If you are a slave, then it doesn't make sense for you to moralize the same way a master would. Instead, what you do is you moralize the things that you have control over, especially when they can serve to make you feel superior to your owners, and when they could help people let go and be content with their lot in life. So an example of that is humility, right? There's this kind of moral weight that we put on humility. Oh, Connor is just such a humble person. He never brags and he never shows off his wealth. He's always,
Look, I wish I had wealth to show off in the first place.
but just as an example, right? Connor's this very
I understand.
giving person, and he's very humble. Well, it's easy to be humble when you're a fucking slave, and it's easy to
No,
be.
yeah, definitely. I thought about about this in like a few different contexts. Like it's probably easy for me to like you said, do certain things just because I don't have the opportunity to do the wrong thing about it. Like,
Right,
and
right, 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 right.
I haven't been put in those positions to prove to myself whether or not I would actually
Do the
do it a
wrong thing.
certain way.
Right. Well, and so if you are moralizing your lot in life and going, well, I'm better simply because I don't have nice things, then number one, you're less likely to rise up and make things better for yourself. And number two, your goals are no longer competing with your owners. You are taking part in your own subjugation. You are reinforcing your slave, your being a slave. And so when I hear that, right, go the extra mile. Oh man, isn't that so passive aggressive that when somebody punched me, I turn so they can punch my other side, and when I'm made to march holding someone else's weapon, that man, it's really going to get back at them if I just do go even more, double the amount that it's expected of me. That feels like a really weird moralization that is meant to keep people exactly in their place. Do you know what I mean? Do you get what I'm saying here?
I think I understand your the way you are saying it. I was just like this was just an interesting some historical context
Oh
I
yeah.
learned lately because like even when it comes to people who do like who preach passive aggressive stuff, like we know in history that even them like who try to do like the non-violent way, they're still targeted by the society, the power structure at large. Yeah, I'm just rambling on at this point.
You're good. I don't have any other callers, so I'm happy to continue. Let me put the phone number out there and we'll continue. Give me just a second. I would love to keep talking. So, people who are watching, 412 SKEPGEN, that's 412 753 7436, or you can go to tiny.cc/SKEPGEN, that's tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. The show is paying for it. It is toll free. Our call screener is waiting to talk to you, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. So, Connor, I know you said you're rambling, but I'm happy to kind of bounce this against somebody and talk about it a little bit more. So,
And right now, I'm trying to because you also brought up the give the shirt off your back thing. There was another thing about that that I'm trying to remember exactly how it went because it was I'm not I'm really going off of vague memory on this portion, but it has something to do along the lines of when someone asks you for one thing, then give them more than what they asked for because at the time getting almost naked was not considered a shameful thing on the part of the person who was naked but on the people who were there and would end up looking at like I said, I'm going like off of vague memory at this point and
yeah.
I don't have it like but it was another like it was just more a little more like how interesting it is to me like how it puts so much into a different context or like a different way to look about stuff when you look at the historical context. Like it doesn't come off as being pacifistic anymore, more than passive aggressive to me. You know, like I said, just interesting thing to think about.
Yeah. Honestly, It feels more like the slave masters not only won your body but has won your spirit, that you have been fully bought in, that not only are you an owned person but they also own your morality. And I think it's gross. But here's
I don't know if I see it the same way as the way you're describing it, because I still see it as like taking stuff to its extreme version of being like, oh, you're gonna make me do this? How about I take it to the it's so extreme that you're the one who gets effed over for doing this to me? That's
yeah,
the
no.
way I
How
think
much
of
does
like
it f
things.
over the soldier who has somebody carry his gear for him? Like,
Well, supposedly it was like physical punishment if they did that from their commanding officers.
and how much is it screwing somebody over when you offer your other cheek for them to hit, for them to recognize you as an equal? I guess it still doesn't feel like that is worth being hit over. But I think
I know, like, we're talking about a society that is like vastly like their social interactions and structures is vastly different from what our modern day understands as what is and is not acceptable.
yeah, that's
Like,
true.
yeah, it's still a little difficult to wrap your mind around
Oh yeah, and I'm
because, like,
definitely not willing to grant that it was better then. But I get
like,
what you're
well,
saying, that there are so different social mores. So let's take it to now, because kind of where I want to go with this is I grew up like connected to the church that my mom took me to, and in that church I saw a lot of weird and not great shit. Um, but one of the things that continues, right, and not just in church but even after, when I became an atheist, when I started going to the atheist community of Austin, or different atheist meetups, people talk about forgiveness in the same way. And so the next question that I have is like, how useful is forgiveness? Because the way that it was taught to me is turning the other cheek. What it was doing is it would give you the ability to let go and no longer hold on to anger or fear or whatever the case is. Um, that it was a necessary process for psychological healing. Um, what are your thoughts on that?
well, that you basically just described it. Like, I do fall more into the camp that there is actually more evidence towards the psychological healing aspect, because at a certain point, how useful is it to just have hate or anger towards a certain person? Like, so I'm going to go into a bit of a personal story. So back in my senior year of high school, the year before, a friend of mine had graduated, and he went off. He joined the army, and he went to be stationed over in North Carolina.
Okay.
Well, one day, and we were all in band together, and so one day at band practice, the director came out to tell us, that he and a fellow PFC of his,
Mm-hmm.
they went out to a club or bar or whatever, but they got jumped by a couple of guys who wanted to steal their car.
Sure.
My friend was beaten to death on the spot.
Holy smokes.
And yes, the two guys were eventually caught because his fellow I don't know, army men, they didn't kill him, and he escaped after they threw him in the trunk. So he got out. He was able to testify and get them arrested and sent to prison.
Right. So
And but
I let
so my thing was like, what would be the point of being filled with hate for the people who killed my friend? Like, is that really something I just want to have fester away? I mean, and it would have been easy too. Like, this wasn't just some regular person. Like, this friend of mine, he was always the one with the smile on his face
yeah.
who went to.
Well,
They were all, he would if he saw you were having like
so
you wouldn't have to say nothing. He would come check in on you.
Connor, I think that like my first piece on that is there's no amount of stuff that's worth a human life. Period.
Right.
If you want something of mine and you are willing to kill me for it, or something like, take the stuff, So like, as far as that's concerned, I kind of want to put that piece to bed. But when it comes to holding on to anger versus forgiving someone, I think that I'm viewing this from a different context. So let me give you an example in return, okay?
Yeah.
So let's say someone is, um, I hate using this as an example, so trigger warning for people who have an issue with hearing about sexual assault. But if someone is sexually assaulted, um, it is not uncommon to see in a church people tell the victim that they need to forgive their rapist, right? That everything would be better if they just forgave them. That it
Right.
would be healthier to forgive them. And often the person who commits the assault is still a part of the church. They're still a part of the community. They're kept there. And to hold on to and say, no, this person does not deserve forgiveness, it then becomes minimized. Well, you're a sinner too. So why are you holding this against them? They're obviously repentant. They're obviously sorry. So why won't you forgive them? It becomes a problem of yours, right? So in this example, forgiveness to me is being weaponized, right?
Right. No, I understand that part because then there's like a certain point where society at large is telling you there's no need for justice on your part if you were victimized in any way.
Yeah.
I see that. I do see what you're saying, and to me, that does have its own aspects to it
Yep.
that should be considered
I
in a
wanted
different.
and I wanted to address what you had to say because you're right in that scenario when it comes to stuff. I'm thinking about more about forgiveness being used as a cudgel to further beat down people who are already beaten down. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. So when I look at that, I definitely see turning the other cheek as something that is kind of vile. you know? um,
No, it's a bastardization of telling people of like preaching peace and pacifism to people.
well, it depends. Honestly, Connor, that's a really great point. Hold on a second. Let me think about that for a minute because like not forgiving someone is not the same as letting
As
people.
twisting something good to inevitably harm them.
Right, right. And it's not opening yourself up. It's not saying, "Hey, I want you to hurt me more." Right?
Right.
I feel like we make that mistake in society right now. That we're comparing those two and maybe those two aren't the same thing. Um,
Right. Oh, I had this boss at a previous job.
hmm,
The reason why he left the Catholic Church, like he barely survived being fondled by the priest. Like the priest offered to watch him, to babysit him and his brother, and like his parents had enough sense to say like, no, we don't want you to watch them at all. But my boss, he's like a decade older than me. So like when he finally heard about this from his parents, he was like, why didn't you ever report him? Like, oh, we didn't want to embarrass the church, and they're still going to that same church to this day.
mm-hmm.
Now the guy was eventually like he was on the list of priests, so I don't know anything. Like I didn't go to that specific church, so I don't know what happened to him, that priest.
So it's interesting. I'm sorry. You said a couple things that really got the gears turning. I'm probably gonna latch onto more there. I just I'm thinking about the two kind of hermeneutic bits that you gave, right? The
Right.
recognizing someone else as an equal or getting someone in trouble with their superiors. I feel like
Right.
implicit in that is this idea that justice is going to happen. That people will be held account for their to help people will be held accountable for their actions. Right?
Yeah, that is one way of looking at it.
So if you're standing in an alleyway and nobody's watching, and they hit you and you turn the other cheek, there's no social repercussions to just getting hit on the other side for the person who's hitting you. You know,
Right. But like we established earlier, this was from a society from a couple thousand years ago.
yeah, but if that, I mean, in society a couple thousand years ago, if no one's there to see it, no one's there to see it, right?
Right.
Not all violence was done in front of witnesses. And like the military example, right? Carrying someone's rucksack or their weapon for a mile. Implicit in that is the idea that they will be held to account to a supervisor who will be mad at them. And if that's not the case, if there's not a supervisor who's mad at them, are they still in trouble? Or did they just take advantage of you?
Right. Well, like I said, it was just like I'm trying to figure out how to put my words here. It's like I originally just brought the ideas up like, oh, that is what it was. That's a different way of looking at it on what it could actually have meant. That was my original intent with the phone call.
No,
Just like, yeah.
I got you. Oh, for some reason I put that you were in California. You're not. You're in Texas. Let me change that on the lower third. There we go. Um, I guess the reason that I bring that up is just because you need to live in a society where there is justice and where people will be held to account if you're going to turn the other cheek, because then
Right.
there are consequences for the people who are hitting you. But when there are not consequences for the people who are hitting you, should you still turn the other cheek?
That is a good question.
This isn't, yeah, and it's not even just about forgiving someone for past offense. It's, are you going to let them continue to hurt you?
Right.
And that's a conversation with someone who's a believer. You are not an atheist.
Right. And just to be clear, because your thing only says theist, like I am. If you want to look at it technically, I am a former Christian and I'm a member of a different faith.
Mhm. Yeah,
But
you're behind.
you and I have been over. Right.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that for anyone watching in the audience.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I appreciate that. I do think that the turning the other cheek is something that is not just Christian.
No, yeah, we do have similar stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have it memorized or how to best paraphrase it to you, because there is some stuff on self-defense, but also having it to where society understands that you are the one being assaulted. Like I said, I don't have any scripture on this memorized, and I'm doing a bad I guess recitation of what it is.
That's okay. I think that while I'm looking at this, I'm looking at BahaiTeachings.org,
Yeah,
and
I think I do remember seeing something like there is the scripture I'm trying to think of is like about how it's others you should like go to defend someone who is being assaulted, if I'm remembering this right.
yeah,
But it's also difficult if it's just like a one-on-one like back and forth brawl to determine like, well, who's the one like what's going on here, like no one can really tell, and like it's more difficult to figure out like when it's like just a straight up fight, and then at what point would you even step in to stop it, kind of deal.
right. And as a third party, I understand there's totally different considerations. But the revenge and retribution, there are definitely teachings in Baha'i, and there are citations to the Jesus passage about turning the other cheek. So all of those kind of do work together there.
No, it does have a very
I think
self-pacifist aspect to the teachings, but more of a collective defense of people being assaulted aspect.
I think that we cannot rely on that, though. if you are expected to continue to get abused with the expectation that other people are going to come to your aid, you do not live in this world.
No, no, and then there's another thing I wanted to bring up. It's about the Baha'i scripture on owning weapons. It's like only if you absolutely need to. So, like, let's take for example, society has collapsed, and there is no expectation of police or anyone coming to protect you. Like, that's an extreme version of what this means, but in that situation, then like, yeah, you're gonna need a gun to defend yourself in a lawless society.
Well, seeing as the military is on their way to Portland, I am going to abstain from my response on that one. Um,
Understandable.
let's not put me on a list, Connor. Can you do that, please? Um, so I don't know. I think that if we need to depend on justice for turning the other cheek to be the right decision, then so long as there is not justice, we should not turn the other cheek. Does that?
I, I mean, no, that is a valid viewpoint on the subject. I don't really have any immediate. I haven't really like thought of it exactly the same way you have, so I haven't gone in as depth as you have.
Mhm.
So I don't really have as much to say
No, that's okay.
in regards to your point of view.
So the reason that I love this style of show is that if you think about it and want to call back again, we can pick up and move from there. There's an emphasis.
Oh, there's a good chance I'll forget about this by the end of the day.
Well,
This
great.
ADD is a bitch.
Yeah, well, let's hope somebody else has a better memory and calls in about it. I want to see these conversations continued, right? Everybody goes to 101 and they want to learn the very first things, but they don't want to go into depth. They don't want to have the deeper, more nuanced conversations. And that's something that I've always wanted to do. And so as long as I'm doing shows, that's going to be a prime point of it. But that said, Connor, even though you were not fully comfortable and even though you didn't have verses to hand, I love that you still feel like you can call in and get a fair shake, you know, and your opinion is valued. So thank you.
Thank you. It's good talking to you.
Take care, brother.
See you.
All right, let's move on. We've got other callers and we are on a roll. I love this. Let's start. Oh my goodness, we have so many international callers. Who the bill is going to be high on this one? Let's talk to Knox in New Zealand. Knox, you're live on the
Hey, Eric.
show. Hey,
Hey, Eric. Sorry about the bills. Glad to call in again, and I will try to not put you on a list. I
I
apologize if I do. I'm try not to.
I appreciate it.
Um,
Hold on, let me just get you in the lower third. This is the downside of me having the hosting and
100%.
producing at the same time. So while I get this, he, him, and NZ for New Zealand.
Yep.
And it says you're a pagan, but that doesn't matter for the lower third. We are good to go. Knox, what do you want to talk about?
Cool. So I am extremely pro turning the other cheek, and I
Okay.
think specifically in activism it becomes necessary, and I'm more than happy to give examples and talk about why. Um, yeah. So I just wanted to follow up with the prompt, same as the last couple of times I called, and yeah.
Well, I really appreciate it. Um, So when you hear turning the other cheek, does that sound kind
Mhm.
of like what the conversation I was having is, or how, like,
100%, 100%. Specifically, the point you made, the question you finished with the other caller on, which is if there's no justice, should we turn the other cheek? One of the previous calls I called on about, again, to tap onto what you were saying before, was about restorative versus punitive justice. When
Mhm.
you ask, can you have justice and mercy? Um, I was very much of the opinion, and still am, that justice should be about restoring things, and I think that there are a bunch of really, really good reasons why an individual, not necessarily society, but why an individual, particularly when they're not in a position of power, should turn the other cheek. And I think that there is only a very limited number of scenarios or conditions which should prevent you from doing that.
Okay.
Yeah,
So if I am being abused, um,
yep,
how many times should I turn the other cheek? Like if I am
great,
assaulted today and I know I'm
yep,
going to be assaulted tomorrow, right? I listen to
Sure.
you. I'm going to turn the other
Sure.
cheek.
Yep.
There is no one to appeal to, right? I'm just giving you the worst case example so we can kind of work
hmm
backwards from there. How many times should I do it?
Great question. So, do you mind if I use like a real practical example? Like, is there any like
Please.
things that you don't want to bring up for like triggered examples or YouTube censorship?
Um, don't
For
get me on the
example,
list, Knox. No,
mhm.
trigger warning, people. Honestly, not all of these episodes get monetized.
Cool,
That
cool.
so I got to do what I got to
So
do.
I'm going to
So,
use a very real example of CSA, right? I grew up in a heavily religious community,
yep,
a cult that lived in the middle of nowhere.
yep,
I have, in between the ages of really 2 to 17 years old, I had 3 different abusers, all of which have now passed away. We're talking, I'm in my 30s, so we're talking older people, and I was in a cult that believed in radical forgiveness. So, had a compound, yada, yada, yada.
yeah.
When I finally went for therapy, um, one of the things that got brought up is one of the questions that you have to ask is, one, do you rationalize the abuse? And do you really notice some of the damage that happens until, years later? Like there are
Yeah.
things in relationships now that I struggle with as a result of what was done to me by admittedly adults. Now, specifically, I'm going to talk about what happened when I was 14 through to 17. That's the last kind of thing. Had I reacted with violence, and to be clear, it wasn't a forceful, hold you down, abuse you type of thing. It was a family friend adjacent. This was after I'd left home at 14. And I was groomed. It was not a situation of
Sure.
violence in the stereotypical sense. It was still horrible,
Well,
not great,
yeah,
don't
it's
recommend it. But
0 out of 5
but
stars.
yeah, 0 stars out of 5, right? Would not recommend ever. Never go there, right?
Right.
And to anyone encouraging that is experienced that, absolutely go to the authorities. But I will say that hands down,
Mhm.
absolutely go and do that because you never know how violent or dangerous that person could be.
Yep.
The thing is, though, had I gotten violent about it, and I have members of my family that I could talk to that have done, they're in their 50s. I have an uncle that's in his 50s that spent, nearly 45 years in prison. Okay, that man just kills pedophiles. He just does. That's what he does. He goes out, he gets into a bar fight, he hears a rumor about someone, then he goes and stabs them and makes national news. And it gets used literally in news articles on TV about why you should never try and rehabilitate some people, right?
Yeah. There's a guy in
The
the United
consequence,
States who got famous
yeah,
for doing that too.
the consequence, had I gotten violent back, I would have been found guilty of, assaulting a cancer victim, right? They go to the cops and they complain. There's always the question of proving it. It's a whole nother thing, right? So while I wouldn't recommend doing nothing about the situation, what I did do in the end was I went and I talked to a family member. Now, by the time that happened, the guy was on his deathbed, literally on his deathbed. Any chance of a legislative outcome was off the table. When you've got, 6 to 8 weeks to live, nothing you can really do about it.
Yep.
The abuse had stopped for about 6 months at that point. It stopped because I stood up and I found my voice. Now, like I said, nothing was violent about it.
No, but standing
Nothing
up.
was, but it was abusive in the sense that you have someone in a position of power
Mhm.
that is abusing you in ways that you do not understand. Had I gotten violent, though, society would have looked at me as just one other crazy kid
Yeah.
that had risen up and stabbed someone or done something about it. Or had I told specific people, he would have ended up dead. And I would have had a family member who just got out of fucking jail, back in jail again, which
Yeah.
admittedly, he went into jail 6 months later for literally stabbing someone for the same shit.
So, no,
One of the last people to get out. Yeah,
yeah, no, I got you. I got you. I think that is a really, really good distinction to make. So let's
hmm
make the distinction, right?
sure.
I think that refusing to turn the other cheek should not imply violence. Um,
Awesome.
Speaking up, speaking out, finding your voice the way you did is
hmm
definitely not turning the other cheek, in my opinion. And I don't.
Sure. I
I think
also,
I think I did not say that, and so
mhm,
let me be really clear in saying
sure.
that, right? Refusing to turn the other cheek does not mean being violent, but finding your voice and speaking up, speaking out, saying this is wrong, getting people's attention on a thing, and
hmm
taking yourself away from where you are being hurt,
hmm
are all not only reasonable, but I encourage that. So I'm right there with you on that.
Now,
Now,
here's the kicker, right?
okay.
I was there 2 days before he died. I went to see him in palliative care every week, and I told him straight to his face that I'd forgiven him right before he died. That might surprise you. And the reason I did that was because there is no positive gain. I was going to have to work through my drama no matter what happened. You
Yeah.
had a person who wasn't doing what they were doing because they wanted to harm. There wasn't some. It was absolutely harmful, and it wasn't in any way ideal. Wasn't right what happened. But what I found was when I actually went to go talk to his family after he passed away, I was invited to the funeral, and I found out that he had a bad relationship with his granddaughter and his own kids. And I was just the last victim in a whole line of victims, right? And every single one of those people had turned that other cheek, and because they'd done nothing about it, never stood up to him. Some people had a lot of money, so some people exploited him for money, et cetera, et cetera. He was allowed to continue that, and I was just the last in that chain before he passed away, right?
Yeah.
What brought me peace in the end is realizing not so much that I'd taken back control of the situation, but that I was able to recognize that there was a problem and deal with it in a way that did not cause violence, that did not send my loved ones to prison, that did not result in someone who was already going through a tremendous amount of pain having to suffer more than what they had to, right?
Right.
And looking back, I would probably take the same approach again. Call it out, remove myself from that situation, and then wait to a position where I know that there's no chance you're going to get hurt or injured. You're in a room with a person that physically can't get out of bed. He's got a couple of days left to live. And go there and make peace at that point when that power balance is back. There was no nastiness. There was no hatred. But there is real, genuine suffering that comes from that. There's real problems that echo through your life because of what this person did. But no amount of me hurting this person back would have fixed the problem. And it wouldn't have prevented the problem. The damage is already done. So when someone's already struck you, when somebody's already hit you on one cheek, the question of do I retaliate or do I remove my step back? Do I turn the other cheek to say, go on, hit me again, I dare you, and then step back to where they can't reach you again, but they can see that they're not going to be able to get you, is one of the most empowering things you can possibly do.
So I first want to affirm that I'm glad that you were able to get the peace and the closure that you needed.
Mm-hmm.
And two, I want to touch back on the point that you made that there are people who could have had this person removed from society such that you would not have gotten abused.
Absolutely.
Were they turning the other cheek, and was there a negative impact for them doing what they did? I think so.
Absolutely. They just put the pain onto someone else.
Yeah.
The caveat being, though, that the degree of damage that would have been done had I actually done something would have harmed more people in that scenario than what it would have fixed.
I feel like that's a weird, justification. I really do, because you can't take into account, you do not own other people's actions. And so for you to take that into account feels like a weird math that I wouldn't advise anybody do, because I hear
when you have,
I hear what you're saying. I really do. I just think that were the people who didn't have your abuser jailed, were they turning the other cheek?
Yes, and that caused further problems. However, they were not in the same position I was. So I'm not advocating for always turning the other cheek. What I'm saying is when you look at the situation outcomes, there are damn good reasons sometimes that you shouldn't take an aggressive approach. Well, that you should step back, that you should say, hey, what is the situation? Do an assessment and then decide.
Again, if talking to a trusted adult because you're being abused, or calling the police, or reaching out to an authority who is trusted, who can get you out of this situation, is that aggressive retaliation? Is that violence? And is that turning the other cheek?
I would say that's turning the other cheek, because what you're doing is you're not actively engaging in violence. You're not trying to hurt the person that hurt you. You're looking towards a system where there is a justice system in place, where people like that are separated from society to keep them there.
That's the word. No, you got it exactly. You're depending on justice, right? And that takes us back to the last call. That if you live in a system where there is justice, if you can depend on justice happening, then it can make sense to turn the other cheek. But when there is no justice, then I think that in that case, there was a moral imperative on those people who knew about your abuser. There was a moral imperative on them to stop him. And
absolutely. And I think had he not been on his deathbed, they would have absolutely done something about it.
Yeah, well,
what we would have all tried to do was prevent my uncle from going and getting someone fucking killed.
Well, no.
And ending up in more trouble.
No, that's on your uncle. That's not on you. And fuck them for not doing it before he got to you. Fuck that. Fuck them. They should have looked out, and if they had, you would not have experienced that.
Probably.
Probably. Well, if the guy's in jail, he can't get to you, right?
Well, no, and had he not been on his deathbed, that's exactly what I would have done. But, I would have waited till,
And I think
it was safe to
I
do
think
so.
that holding people to account for their actions isn't retaliation either. If somebody abuses you, they deserve to be punished for their abuse, and you seeking them getting punished for that, right, is morally justified.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That's the reason the law exists, and that's why you would go to the law. But in situations where there isn't a justice system to rely on, for example, and I'm going to use another practical example here, and I'm going to stick to that same topic, so I'm not shifting all over the place. In Australia, around about that time, there was a gentleman by the name of Cardinal George Pell, internationally famous. He was the third most powerful in the Vatican person in the Vatican. Are you familiar with Pell?
Oh, of course, and I definitely love
awesome. Absolute scumbag. Absolute scumbag, right?
Yeah. Did you ever listen to "Come Home, Cardinal Pell"? When
I did. Tim Minchin's great, but I'd met Cardinal Pell. I was an altar boy at one stage.
No shit.
I'd been to that cathedral. Yeah. I'd been to that cathedral. I'm not trying to undermine victim statements, but he got away on technicalities because the prosecution did a shit job. They could have done a much better job, and he never would have got out on his final appeal. But what I am going to say is that when that happened, it wasn't calling for bloodshed and violence that fixed the problems. What it was people standing up in a non-violent method as activists about child sexual abuse and the scandals around the church with it, looking at particular figures and calling for justice peacefully. That is what didn't just get Pell as someone that was living in Australia at the time, it completely reshaped the laws in ways that have never been done before that, to hold institutions accountable, to hold truth to power, everything.
I think that's a horrible example of that. I hear what you're saying, but that example, you gave an example of somebody absolutely getting away with it, and the system absolutely letting him go. And this person,
but the church didn't.
Never.
And that's the point.
Right. I think speaking up, speaking out, getting yourself removed. And if you're not in a position where, you can stop your abuser, then making sure that you are able to connect with people who can stop your abuser is never retaliation. It's the right thing to do. And also,
I completely agree.
And it is not turning the other cheek. And turning the other cheek is a good way of telling a victim to shut the fuck up.
I would never tell a victim to do that. It is absolutely up to them what they do, and I think they should bring that kind of darkness to light, because truth is the best, disinfectant. It's like sunlight. You just put it on everything, everyone sees the problem, and they deal with it. But what I'm saying is, in the Pell situation, I'll tell you why I don't think it's a bad example. Respectfully, I don't.
No.
Had a vigilante gone up and murdered a priest, a senior Catholic individual, or people had rioted in the streets and started killing people over it, what would have happened is the civilians are the people that would have been cracked down on. New laws to protect people in these positions would have come out because people would try to preserve order. The best thing to do was to talk about it peacefully and push for justice, to make it so clear that you are getting slapped again and again and again, and this person is getting away with it, to the point where you cannot put any of the blame back on the victims. If you have vigilante justice running around because people say someone's hurt me, I'm going to go hurt them again, it throws things into chaos.
So
that's what I'm getting at with that example.
Totally understood. And also, I think you're operating from a viewpoint where you can depend on justice more than I can.
100%. I'm not in America right now, and I don't mean any offense towards you. I know you've said on previous shows, if you're ever planning on coming to America, don't speak out about the government. Fuck Donald Trump. 100%.
Knox.
I'm never planning on coming to America, and he's a very big reason why.
Knox, I got you, and also I appreciate it. And while you could be a believer, you could be an atheist, you could be a pagan, it doesn't matter. If you are calling, I'm anticipating, I am fully expecting that you are being respectful and all of that. So you do not need to preempt it. I fully expect
awesome.
You are so good. You're already operating with that level of charity from me.
But yeah.
That said, I think that what you're saying is really great advice for New Zealand and for everywhere. I agree that when it comes to violence is the very, very, very bottom. That's at the bottom of the barrel when everything else has been tried. So
Yep.
let's not mince let's not mistake that. That said, I'm absolutely, if Cardinal Pell was not being tried, if he was not being held accountable, then yeah, no, kick the fucking shit out of him. You don't need to kill him. But I would not have shed a single tear if
Oh, I wouldn't have been scared either, to be honest. Like, the dude was
yeah.
an absolute monster. He literally covered up institutional abuse.
Yeah.
But the consequence of how it was handled here means that there's laws in New Zealand, sorry, not New Zealand, in Australia, from when I used to live there,
Yeah.
that are now in place permanently. They don't sunset. A lot of laws have a sunset. These have no clear sunset date. That mean that institutions, whether it's a primary school where they're covering up a teacher, a
Yeah.
kindergarten, anything else,
Right.
you now have a massive school of mandatory reporters, things to prevent these systems from happening, because the focus was kept entirely on we are innocent victims.
And as
There was
long as
no
we
possible way that some asshole could twist it to
not
make the victims the bad guys because they turned that cheek. They let people see their oppression. They made sure they were slapped in daylight, so to speak, and they didn't go and actually actively strike back and retaliate in a physical or a violent way.
because
They
you,
focused on showing the truth.
because you can depend on a system to make justice happen.
100%.
And when you can't do that, then what?
That's a really great question. Then
'Cause that's a
and
little
I'm
more
not going to say it on your show because I don't want to get you in trouble. But then
so
you look at what starts.
I think
Yeah,
that speaking up, speaking out, making sure that you are not suffering in silence. And I think that we should not individually morally put weight on turning the other cheek, especially if that's going to encourage us to protect violence and abusers and being abused, right? Like,
I would agree with that statement.
yeah.
Broadly speaking, I would immensely agree with that statement, with a few caveats. But
but I think we could probably over a beer agree on most of
100%,
them. So
100%.
that said, I hear what you're saying. I do. And also where I'm coming from, what you're saying is widely understood. That is widely the way people talk about turning the other cheek. I think that I am being transgressive in the way that I talk about turning the other cheek, because I want people to see that there are other ways to view it, because what you are talking about can only happen when there is justice that you can expect.
How do you avoid vigilantism, though, becomes a really big question, because what one person views as justice may not be the other. For example, let's say...
here's the thing, is if you live in a Nazi society and there are more Nazis than there are not Nazis, then that is just what it is. It sucks, but that is what it is. Vigilantism is justice that is not endorsed by a government.
I would completely agree with you in the context of that kind of clearly socially wrong.
Yeah. So
I think
I think that how do you avoid vigilantism? I think that
you don't let it get to that society.
Yeah.
You let the Nazis rise up.
And if you do, don't moralize against the person who's like, see, now I'm needing to choose my words carefully. You know the second hit rule? I talked about it last time.
Yeah, it's usually the second person that hits that gets punished, not the first.
Yeah, I think that is what we're tending.
Which is fucked up.
And it's what's happening. So
yeah,
let's not pretend that the second kid started the fight. You know.
No. But I really struggle with that, because like it's a fine line. I'm going to be honest with you. Like I can moralize all I want. Luigi Mangione, right? The direct consequence of that man and his actions has specifically meant that shareholders have been complaining in the companies, in the insurance companies, that too many claims are being approved.
They filed a class action lawsuit against it, the company.
Yeah, right. Like, how insane is it that we're in a world where there are countries that exist with a legal system where the stock market, and again, I'm not trying to, anti whatever, but I'm anti high-end capitalism, if I'm 100% honest with you. I think, money doesn't prove virtue, and I think that running a profit at all costs means that people have to lose.
Yeah,
I think inevitably it'll always be a choice between your staff members, your families, and your impact. If you can get away with dumping toxic waste in areas
Well,
going to cause cancer, 30
I
years down the line for entire residents, but you
no,
get better returns on your shares that month.
Knox, you're
You
talking
could
to
argue
an
to have a
American.
fiscal.
Like we had fucking slavery here for a very long time, which is the
Right?
embodiment of
Fucked up.
capitalism. That's capitalism, baby. Like yeah.
But don't you still have slavery in America? Respectfully, look at your prison populations. Look at the way that your economy works on that, your military-industrial complex. Like, that's fucked up. And it all happens ethnically to particular minority groups because they're considered vulnerable enough or they're disempowered enough to get away with it. And governments absolutely abuse people all the fucking time. And again, no disrespect to you as an American, but like your country does it in a way that just makes the whole world fucking baffled.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how you guys deal with it. I tip my hat to you because it's fucked up that you should have to live with that. And I don't have a clear answer as to how you fix that.
I don't either. What I can tell you
I wish
is,
I did.
I know, right? I think I've talked about this before on the show that I've picked up doing video editing for my buddy Drew on his channel,
Yep.
Genetically Modified Skeptic. And in his most recent video, he talks about when he went to a Christian college, because he went to a Christian college. And for a small section of it, he's talking, I think it's just for patrons. I think we took it out eventually, but he talks about kind of mass religious experiences, mass psychosis or mass delusions, and kind of how that was just really skipped over. But I was looking for footage to put over that. I wanted to find B-roll as examples for that, right?
Yep.
And I'm looking at these examples of like mass hysteria, psychosis, delusions, however you want to call it.
Fatima comes to mind.
Yeah, right. The miracle of Fatima, right? The miracle of the sun. The sun
Yep.
flew around.
100%.
No, I got you. But there's also the laughing epidemic. There are cases of people dancing for days and days and days straight. Like.
Okay.
There are examples of like towns where people couldn't stop screaming, and it was treated like an epidemic. Like, this is a mass thing that's going on. Do you know what a lot of those had in common? Like the mass.
Look, if it's a music concert, I'm inclined to say drugs, but like religious fervor, I'd say would be my best guess. But tell me, because
Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, the screaming epidemic happened right before the French Revolution.
Right. People push to their boiling points.
People who have no ability to find justice, and people who are unwilling to see, vigilantism, people who are doing the right thing, but the right thing just means them suffering for the rest of their lives because it's probably not going to get fixed in their lifetime. People who are driven to the point of seeing just how powerless they are. When people are in that situation, right? The laughing sicknesses were school children who were laughing and crying at the same time. They couldn't stop.
Yep.
And they were also in very war-torn areas of Africa where these children very clearly had no way to stop the violence in their communities.
Yep, and the stuff they'd have to see day to day with cannibal generals running around and all that.
So,
I'm going to ask a question relevant to that, but again, if it's an offensive one or whatnot, just tell me to shut up, and I will cut it because none of it is said with disrespect.
That's okay.
When I look at America, one of the things that comes to mind.
Well, I just want to finish. Put a fine point on the end of that, and then I'll let you.
Yep.
I would not be surprised if that kind of thing happened. I would not be surprised if like a psychosis kind of epidemic. And I'm sure there's a lot of ableism in what I just said, and I can probably learn and grow from that, but take me at what I'm trying to say here. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. All right, go ahead. What were you going to say?
So, I wasn't actually going to change the topic. I was going to drill down on that. And I mean, no disrespect, again, to anything, because again,
you are just there
was an incident.
Polite human being.
There was an incident.
Yeah,
with an individual who I will not name because fuck naming him, but Rolling Stone did, who got into a car at a marathon and ran a whole heap of people over. His front face, his cover, art was everywhere for Rolling Stone. All the interviews, why did you do what you do? Killed a whole bunch of innocent people. No one told me the lives of the people in America that were killed. School shooters, I can think of the Columbine shooters. I know their stories. Do I know the stories of the victims? No. That pisses me the fuck off. When I think of America, I think of a huge hysteria where nothing gets done and people figure out that their only way when they're so desperate is to get violent and do something about it. And I wonder when you're talking about that hysteria, if that's where the epidemic of school shootings really is rooted. You can talk about gun availability all you want, but what drives people to do that? What makes them feel so angry, arrogant, self-justified, or whatever feelings they feel, that they feel they can just pick up a gun and go gun down the innocent to make a statement? I wonder where that comes from, and maybe what you're talking about with the mass hysteria relates to that. But just
I think that might be more born of a lack of socialized medicine, the lack of ability to get help, professional help.
Yep.
And also a cultural distaste for therapy. I think that has a lot more to do with it. I hear what you're saying, but I think it has more to do with that. As far as the person who drove through the crowd of George Floyd protesters,
that's another one. Yeah,
that is a large point. That on September 28th, 2025, I, Eric Murphy, living in Portland, Oregon, do not feel comfortable talking about. So,
and I'm really sorry to hear that.
Yeah, me too.
Do you mind if I ask, did you know anyone affected? Did you hear about any, just not you personally, but did they televise the victims of that, or did they focus on the perpetrator? Or if you're not comfortable, just tell me to bugger off and I will just,
no worries,
drop it.
Over here, it was a meme, people sharing videos and putting it to music.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, right?
That's horrible, man. That's fucked up, dude.
Maybe they should just turn the other cheek.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm being glib on that.
No, you're good.
But
I got it.
Yeah.
When I was in Melbourne, the Burke Street massacre, in prison, the guy's name's Jimmy Gaggs, and I got, family in-laws that work in the justice system. So I was there. I watched a baby's brains get scattered over a sidewalk, and it was one of the most horrible things I've ever seen, when the guy just ran over with a car.
Yeah.
And what baffled me is how okay everyone was it the next day. Every life just kind of went back to normal. There was this little memorial up near the chocolate shops on Elizabeth Street in Swanston, and that was kind of it at the corner of Burke where it kind of went off. But I watched him out on the sidewalk. I pulled my friends back and almost got hit by the car myself. I had an auntie that was working in one of the Lush, it's like a soap company. Anyway, she was pulling people inside her soap store, basically her cosmetic store, to try and avoid them getting hit by a car. And the dude did that because he got high, went and stabbed someone and ran around. And people were just instead of having a call for more mental health action, instead of doing any of that, everyone just looked at, why didn't people get off the streets?
So,
how do we put up some barricades and then, not really actually do anything to address the issue?
Oh, I agreed. I'll give you one more, and that's as close to the line as I'm going to get. And that is that yesterday, a news article came out about a delivery driver who was crushed by a... she was working, I believe, offloading a delivery truck at a larger facility.
Mm-hmm.
The door was faulty, and it fell and slammed and killed her.
Fuck, poor woman.
The employers, right, the owners of this facility, called the police, and then they stuck her body inside of the back of a truck and told everyone to get back to work.
That is fucking disgusting. We all had to get back to work in our job as well, and we didn't turn the other cheek. We sat there and went, "Nah, fuck you, we're not doing anything."
Yeah.
We just sat there and waited for the cops to come lock our building down. We just went, "Nah, bugger it, get stuff, we're not working." Yeah. And fortunately, in Australia, there's nothing they could really do. They can't fire you on the spot. You have good workers' rights. You have all that, but
you don't have.
Again, there's that justice to rely on.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys don't.
Yeah, we don't.
And that's fucked up.
There are people who needed to work near their dead coworker, and the most that we can hope for is a social condemnation of it, but no one will be held accountable for the vile action of making people work by their dead coworker. And the most that the company is going to get is an OSHA violation, which is a slap on the wrist.
Yeah, occupational health and safety.
You got it. But
Yeah,
that
we call it the same thing here.
yeah, and what the way I view that is that level of neglect is tantamount to violence in my opinion.
Hundred, hundred
So
percent. And like that,
we
that's the thing that pisses me off because again, there's a saying. I when I used
I
to work
so
construction, red
I,
tape is red from the blood of the employees that died to get it.
no, yeah, you're right. You're right. And I think that talking about violence inherent in the system is something that is going to wind up getting me in a place that I can't go. So, Knox,
Really sorry. Happy to. Yeah,
okay,
sorry about that, man.
as a caller from New Zealand who is going to cost me a pretty penny because you've been on the line for 42 minutes, I would
I am so sorry. I did not realize
gladly
that time.
I would gladly pay for it 3 times over to have this conversation with you. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
You take care of yourself, right, brother?
Awesome. Have a great show, man.
You too.
Thanks for taking the call. Bye.
All right, let's continue and talk. Let's just roll right on and talk to Keena in Ireland. That's right. We had another international caller who's been waiting for over half an hour. Let's do this. Keena, you're live on the show.
Hello.
Hello. Let me turn down your volume just a bit. I needed to turn that last person up a bit. What did you want to talk about? Yeah, what's up?
So I neither believe nor don't disbelieve in the idea of turning the other cheek because I actually think it's a non sequitur.
Okay.
I've never, yeah. So I think, like, basically, it's based on the whole idea of turning the other cheek. It's based on the idea that when you do something bad, you deserve a punishment, right? When someone does something bad to you, you have the right to get some kind of remediation, and like, it's useful. It is a very useful way of doing things, right? In fact, like the whole concept of deserving seems to be like an instinct that like us and our ancestors have had for a very long time because it's useful. But I've never actually found like a logical basis for it, right? Like I don't see like there's a jump there, right? Like you did a bad thing to me, so therefore I get to do a bad thing to you. Like that's not like actually like a logical statement. It just feels right. And so I actually don't operate on that, or at least I try not to. Like in my mind, like if someone does something bad to me, I have to do something to make sure that this bad situation doesn't continue. But that's not actually like a deserve or revenge or anything like that. To me, it is, this is just the situation, and it doesn't really matter, how we got to this point. I just know that it needs to not continue, and I need to take the appropriate steps to make sure that happens.
So I've got two pieces to that. The first is I'm not defending Hammurabi's law, but I do just want to point it out that, like, the Code of Hammurabi predates the Bible, and that's where we get the eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth language. That made enough sense to be a basis of government that was functional. So I'm not saying that doesn't work because it has. Um, I'm getting some feedback. I'm not sure why. It might be that my microphone's just a little loud on your end, so it's getting picked up.
I thought that was my speaker.
No, it's okay. There we go. It's gone.
Okay.
So like, yeah, Code of Hammurabi, totally get it. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. It does make more sense than I think you let on, but it's also not a great system. So moving on from that, I'm actually thinking about that, and I have for the last couple of years, right? This kind of ties in to the conversations we have about, do we have free will, right? If somebody doesn't have free will, then should they be held accountable for their actions? Well, the way that I hear people talk about it is, well, if your Roomba isn't working, you're going to stop using it. And if your Roomba is damaging the floor, you're going to remove it from the floor, right? You're not going to blame the Roomba, but you're also just going to take it out of circulation, right? In the same way that if you look at a person who does not have free will, it still makes sense to remove them from the general population that they're hurting if that's what's going on. So, like, what you're saying makes sense in that kind of deterministic framework, and I totally get that. Um, that said, let me think here, because refusing to turn the other cheek, I feel like what you're saying is that equals retaliation. Is that the case? Do you think if someone refuses to turn the other cheek that they are retaliating?
I think, well, so I generally think of turning the other cheek as more of like inaction. Like, I'm just gonna sit here and take it, and like maybe I'll give you social consequences later by giving you a very bad review, but I'm not gonna do anything. So it's retaliation in that sense.
Yeah. Um, I do just want to point out I saw in the live chat, Creative Writer 3 said, turning the other cheek just encourages the malefactors. Not even Jesus followed his own teaching. Have I read the New Testament? Um, how he frothed at the mouth for violence and violent endings to his enemies. It even gets worse in the non-canonical books. Um, I'm really, I think as a project, I really want to put out the gospel, um, the childhood gospel of Thomas, as an example of that, as like an early gospel that shows some really crazy shit, like Jesus killed kids. Um, but I got that. Sorry. Kina, can you help me get back on topic here?
uh,
We're
I mean, I'm also ADHD, so
No
no.
worries. No,
I'm
that's okay.
sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Um, so it says in the notes, I don't believe.
Oh yeah, Lex Talionis. So it's just
What is
eye for an
Lex
eye.
Talionis? Oh, got it. Got it. Oh, you don't think eye for an eye or quote deserve, so I don't think offense even factors into morality.
Oh, I remember. You were asking me whether I considered turning the other cheek equivalent, or not turning the other cheek equivalent to retaliation, and I said that turning the other cheek is just, my understanding of it is just inaction.
Okay. Okay. So when you refuse to do a thing, or okay, I get that. Um, I'm having trouble figuring out where you stand on this. You're saying offense doesn't factor into morality, and the way that you interact with an offense, or remove somebody from a situation. I'm confused. Um, and it looks like the call dropped. And that about a bitch. um, Kina, I'm sorry. Had an Irish caller on for 42 minutes. Um, damn. Oh well. So we've got some open lines. I'll keep things up for a little bit longer. But I'm also going to be, regardless of when I end the show, I am going to be going to the after show. There is an after show after most episodes of SKEPGEN. You can find the link. It's on Discord, and the link is in the description for this video. Um, it's a more open forum, and there's a regular group that gets together, and we just hang out, talk about things. It's a little more chill. So if you do want to join that, please consider doing that. I've gotten a couple of questions because I've brought up the phone bill. So I'll just say, everything that goes to supporting the show, I pump right back into the show. Currently, I'm subsidizing to make sure that the show can happen, and I love that. I love what this is, and I love this community. I think what we're doing is important. I think that ongoing conversations where people are able to grow and learn and develop nuance is what is needed in society, and that is worth it to me. If it is worth it to you and you can support it, please consider becoming a patron by going to patreon.com/skepticgeneration. That's patreon.com/skepticgeneration. If you can't do that, totally understood. Hit the like button, hit subscribe, share this out to people who think would benefit from the show. All of those things pick us up in the algorithm so more people can find us. Yeah, it is worth it. And I love that we're doing this. That said, Kina is back. Kina, hey. Okay, so Talk to me here. We were talking about offense and morality, and I'm kind of lost. What's going on?
And then I pressed the mute button with my face. Sorry.
That's okay.
I swear I've used the phone before.
That's okay. So you were talking about offense and morality and whether or not, like, help me. What's your take on this? I'm really having trouble understanding it.
My take on it is basically just I think it's framing the problem in the wrong way, because to me, so the concept of turning the other cheek is basically the concept of eye for an eye, right? Only like basically saying you
No.
shouldn't use the concept of eye. No.
Oh, no. Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't let you finish. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the antithesis of an eye for an eye. It's
Yeah.
took my eye. Please take the other one.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, sorry, my phone's being. Yeah. No. So like. So it's even though it's coming to the opposite conclusion, it's still based on the same kind of thought, right? Like you do a thing, like you've created an offense, and the other person now has this defense that they get to hold against you. And the whole idea of turning the other cheek is to just not use that offense, right? Like, I have the right to do something bad to you in kind, but I'm not going to do that, and that makes me a good person. And I think that that's just the framing that turning the other cheek is coming from is a misunderstanding of reality, because I don't think reality actually works that way. I don't think that, doing a bad thing, like the entire concept of an offense, like as like a, how do I say this? Like when I say that I am offended, I do not mean that, like I'm saying that I am feeling as if I am hurt, and that source of the hurt is your actions. But I don't think that the offense exists as like this independent moral thing that can be accounted, like tallied up later and say, okay, well, this existed, so now it's okay to do this other thing back to even the account. Like, I don't think that makes sense.
Well, so I think it really depends. If you're talking about like a retributive justice, I totally understand. But if we are talking about, somebody is abusing people in their life, removing them from those people so that they can no longer abuse others, makes sense. I think that is deserved. And I don't think that like, that doesn't mean that I'm saying you should abuse the abuser back, but holding them to account for their actions is the issue. And I think I can put a finer point on it. So have you heard that whole justice versus mercy discussion?
In terms of heaven and hell, or
just the concept of justice and the concept of mercy, and how the two things are at odds, right? Usually it's talked about as far as God is concerned. Is God merciful or is God just? And can those things exist at the same time? So I'll give the general idea of it. Justice is people being held accountable for their actions. It is consequences for behavior, right? Mercy is the suspension of those consequences for someone else, right? So let's say I'm a farmer and you killed my sheep, right? Justice is I take you to the authority or whatever the case is, and you face consequences for killing my sheep. Mercy is if I do not hold you to account for that, I am giving you mercy, right? We can get even worse for that, right? If somebody's facing the death penalty and it's decided that the just thing to do is to put someone to death, you suspend that and you say, no, I'm not going to put you to death. That is mercy, not justice, right? Turning the other cheek is often put in the mercy category. And so when I'm talking about turning the other cheek, I am seeing it in opposition to justice. Does that help?
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah. So if I'm saying holding a
Yeah.
person to account,
Basically,
that is them getting the correct consequences for their actions. That is not me saying, "Hey, I'm allowed to punch you back," but it is me saying you are going to be held accountable. There is a punishment for this that is
well, in a
deserved,
sense, it is because
right?
yeah, I mean, in a sense, I think it is. That's still coming from more of a retributive justice system. Like, even if the goal is these are the consequences that we expect you will need to not do this again, it is still you did a bad, so now we're going to do a bad to you, right? That's
I
what you're
mean,
saying when you say consequences.
not necessarily. No. If if you're a kid and Kina, you were hitting your little brother, and I sent you to your room,
Mhm.
um, is that retributive justice? Like, I'm keeping you away from hitting your brother more. There are good reasons to jail somebody other than retribution.
Mhm.
There are practical
Yeah,
ways.
I mean, in that case, it could be either.
Yeah, there are practical ways that people can see consequences to their action as well. That said,
Yeah, and that I wholeheartedly agree with.
yeah, I figured. Kenny, you and I have talked enough. I figured. But I don't know. I do want to make sure that I put this out there because I think I've finally been able to put a finer point on that. I think turning the other cheek stands in opposition to justice because it is put
Yeah.
on the mercy side of things. And mercy is the suspension of justice. So, should we be doing that? I do want to put the phone number out one more time just in case more people want to call in. Um, The phone number is 412-SKEPGEN. That's 412-753-7436. Or you can go to tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. That's tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. I've got just enough time for another caller or two. And then we're probably going to move on with, going to the after show. Kina, is there anything else that you wanted to add? Or is there a place that you wanted to go with this conversation that we haven't gotten to yet?
No, honestly, I think that was a good way of putting a point on it. Like, simply because even coming out from more of a restorative, I think probably be the best way of describing my way or my way of thinking is restorative justice. Like, if you look at, as you said, if turning the other cheek as not enacting justice, then like that phrase still means something, and it's still a bad idea. So yeah, no, I'm 100% in agreement with you now. Yes.
Okay. I cool. All right, then Kina, take care of yourself, and I will catch you in the after show. All right. I think I'm going to read super chats. If someone else calls in, I will take the call. But we've gotten quite a few super chats, and I really, really appreciate it, you guys. Joshua Everett sent $10 and says for a phone bill. Definitely not a payment for any groups that may or may not exist that any of us may or may not be a part of. I have no idea what you mean, and I don't want to know what you mean, Joshua. Thank you for your support. Onomatopoeia phobic sent $50. Thank you, Onomatopoeia. It says also for the phone bill. Maybe some food too if you like that eating thing. If you're comfortable saying what's a phone bill for an episode of your show, no idea if it's like $100 or $500. I'm happy to. This show is small enough. I'm totally okay being really open with what's coming in and all of that. I did 2 episodes this month. I'm expecting about $200 to come in via Patreon. When it comes to doing the show, I run a program called Wirecast. That's, I think, $60 a month. For phones, it totally depends on how many callers and how many call screeners because it is per open line and then where that call is from. When we were running on full steam with 2 active call screeners and, like 4 people left on the line throughout the show, that was, you'd be looking at about $80 for the episode. Right now, we're running much lower than that. So I can probably expect about 30 something bucks for today's episode. As things grow, or we get more international callers, or whatever the case is, we need more help. It shifts, so it's hard to put a fine number on it, but if that helps, just with the other programs and everything going, it puts me at about, I'm just under breaking even, and so that's why I'm saying that I'm subsidizing, and that's okay. The show's worth doing. That really does help, and I may not need to subsidize the show because of that. So thank you. John Klein sent $10 and says more phone bill money. Thank you. John Q says even more, and then again and more. $2 for each. Thank you, everybody. And then Athiopagan sent $20 and says Fenrir's teeth have been showing more and more lately in my conversations. I've been less and less patient and less charitable. My mind is getting ready, and I don't like it. So, Ethiopagan, you, having gotten to meet you in person, you're a sweet human being. And what you do to help your community, we need it. So, take care of yourself, my friend. We're going to get through this. We have to. All right. One more caller from Canada. I do not have them screened, but that's okay. We're just going to hop right in. Hey, John in Canada. Oh, that's the person who's calling. Hey, John.
Long time no hear.
Yeah, so I know that I have said that Tori is welcome to have you on the air. And Tori,
Let me guess. You don't want to speak to me? Is that what you're telling me?
yeah, call in next week when Tori's here.
Did I offend you, Eric?
We will pick up. Honestly, John, I'm not in a place where I can have a conversation that is going to be useful for everybody.
Okay, I understand. Have a good day.
Take care. Yeah, I can't do that right now. Rogue Lesser sent 9. Oh, jeez, Kina. Sent $10. Didn't realize my calls cost more. Don't worry about it. That's okay. Rogue Lesser sent $10. Thank you for everything you do, Eric. It's time to prepare to fight for the world we want to see. All of those are things that are going to get me on a list. I sincerely appreciate it. You guys, we're going to get through this. We're going to get through it. I don't want to do it by moralizing myself to feel like I'm a better person. And I don't want to lionize people for jumping the gun. I want us to build community. If you're seeing things and you're feeling helpless, there are things you can do. And it may not seem like a lot, but I think if you're in a city that is looking at getting occupied soon, find out who needs things, because there will be a run on the stores. I think there's going to be a run on the grocery stores. I think there's probably going to be a lack of toilet paper in Portland very soon. For people who don't necessarily have access to food, help them. Create a system that people can depend on, because right now they're not confident that they can depend on anyone. Get to know your neighbors and build support systems so that you can be there for each other. I think it's wonderful that you're here. We've developed an international community, which is incredible. And asking people to be hyper-local feels weird. But truly, if we're going to get to the other side of it, we need to help each other get there. And that I can say unabashedly, unreservedly. And I hope you all listen. All right. I'm going to head over to the after show. I think this has been good. Thank you all so much for joining me. Thank you to our incredible volunteers for just what an incredible audience. You guys are amazing. Hit the like button if you haven't. Hit subscribe. Until next time, I'm going to be on with Tori next Sunday. But for today, I'm Eric Murphy. This has been Skeptic Generation. and I'm glad we had this talk.